Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on your time zone. And welcome to Moral Compass 101. I will please request you to comment so that we can interact, subscribe to get edified, like and share to disseminate knowledge. Today is Mother's Day, and I'll first and foremost take this opportunity to wish our mothers a happy Mother's Day. As we always say, once a mother, always a mother. We celebrate our mothers for this great title of being mothers. It's something that so many people take for granted, but I do believe that if it was a preserve of men to beget children, the world population will still be sitting in the hundreds. But we congratulate our mothers for this odious responsibility of persevering the pain that comes with it. So I say Happy Mother's Day to all mothers around the world. Having said that, I will do a recap of what we did on our last video, and I elucidated the support on my claim that life starts with self, where I discussed a number of cells that make us a complete human being. To be precise, the 17 cells. I went ahead to discuss the fundamental cells. One of it is self-identity, which we always mention during this topic because we are talking about intrapersonal relationship. I also went ahead to talk about self-determination, which is the freedom that will necessitate the pursuit of your self-identity. This autonomy is also dependent on two cells, which are self-discipline and self-sacrifice, that are the guidelines of the effectiveness and the efficiency of self-determination. Self-determination being a very profound topic, please allow me to shelve it for now, and we shall come back and deal with it at a later date. Today, as we continue with this profound topic of intrapersonal relationship, our topic is self-selfishness, quote unquote, the selfish me. Or you can own it and say, that's a way of owning it, saying the selfish me. I will say the selfish you. Selfishness is a very, very, very sensitive issue that most people wouldn't prefer not to talk about. But unfortunately, that denial does not cancel the reality that humanity is full of selfish persons. I don't know if someone has ever asked you the question, why are you being selfish? Or rather, why do you do selfish things? This is a very, very, very intriguing question, and an offensive question to most people. Nonetheless, just like I said, humanity is full of selfishness. We'll go ahead and define selfishness, where my definition of selfishness, I'll say selfishness is an inborn or an acquired personality trait or a disposition of excessive regard to self and exclusive disregard to the needs and the feelings of others. In that definition, we have the word trait, which is a general perspective of enduring characteristic that define your behavior or your personality. We also have the word disposition, which is a specific inclination towards your behaviors or your reaction, your action or your reaction. In simplicity, selfishness is the excessive mindset of me, myself, and I. This is a mindset that brings forth or that instigates an entitlement that's detriment to the regards of other people. Selfishness is also the primary motivation in the cynical world, where individuals adopt a cynical mindset as a coping mechanism against hopelessness, helplessness, disappointment, and the vulnerability from the elite people. The sense of being cynical brings forth a defensive mechanism whereby, in order to guard your innocence, your peace, you create a notion in your mind or a cynical mindset within yourself or within your thinking that people are selfish beings who are only in pursuit of self-interest and don't care about the welfare of the other people, of the general population. So the selfish people have pushed or have motivated a vast majority of the population to believe that humanity is full of selfish people who are only interested in pursuing their own goals with a mindset of superiority complex. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter number 19 and verses 27, Peter goes ahead to ask Jesus, "What shall we gain because we left all that we had to follow you?" That is a true depiction of a selfish mindset that, you are only interested with what you shall gain in expense of following Jesus, who is talking about the liberation of the entire human nature. So, selfishness is the unethical societal vice that has continued to erode the African spirit of Ubuntu that says, I am because we are. Let me explain that. The African spirit of Ubuntu is a guideline, is the greatest guideline of African togetherness, whereby we were taught that your greatness must be factored from the perspective of the society. Hence, the African proverb that it takes a village to raise a child. But unfortunately, in this day and age, we are living in a time where we believe that it's all every man for himself, in a total disregard of that aspect of Ubuntu, that I am because we are. It starts with we, so that I come last. It's a mindset of selflessness. But unfortunately, we are living in the days where it does not practically exist. So, in my definition of selfishness, I pointed out two sources of this detrimental vice. These are inborn or inherent or acquired. So this selfishness, in other words, it can be acquired or it can be inborn. And that's why we struggle so much with fighting selfishness, because when something is inborn, it takes a great deal and a great determination to completely work against it or to put it to an end. And hence, humanity is to this day struggling with this vice, detrimental societal vice called selfishness. And just like money, where the Bible tells us the love of money is a source of all evil, selfishness is likewise a source of all evil. So we'll go ahead and talk about these two sources of selfishness. And we shall start with the inborn selfishness or the inherent selfishness, the humanistic selfishness that emanated from Adamic sin or the fall of man. This inborn selfishness takes us back to Genesis chapter number 3, where we find the fall of man. So we can say that selfishness is an aspect of the Adamic sin, where from the book of Genesis, human beings are subjected to the act of selfishness. While the deceptive conviction from the serpent to Eve that eating the forbidden fruit would lead to knowledge and equality with God contrived a sense of entitlement to Eve. Adam's selfish need to become equal with Eve, who had already eaten the forbidden fruit, and with God, who had instructed them never to eat it, led to him eating the forbidden fruit, hence the fall of man, and an inherent disposition of both entitlement and selfishness that led to the fall of man and the death of the relationship between man and God. Let me explain this. The serpent convinces Eve, the wife of Adam, to partake the fruit, the forbidden fruit, so that she can be equal with God. She can be wise, she can have knowledge, and be equal with God. So it gave her a sense of entitlement. You know, I'm entitled to knowledge just like God. I'm entitled to wisdom just like God. Let me go ahead and partake the fruit. She does it and then convinces the husband, oh, I'm wise now because I've eaten the fruit. This triggers a sense of selfishness to Adam that now my wife is more knowledgeable than I am. She's more wise than I am. In order for me to equal with her and to also equal with God, I'll partake the fruit. So the two aspects of selfishness, or the single aspect of selfishness, that is entitlement, comes in. That the feeling that they were entitled to wisdom and knowledge, and the selfishness of Adam that he was entitled to be equal not only with the wife who was the first to take the fruit, but also to God who had forbidden them to take the fruit, brought the whole scenario of selfishness to humanity, where the first death, relationship death, is recorded, where the relationship between man and God died. Then came next the two sons they begot. That's Cain and Abel. What did they do? Cain and Abel, who by the virtue of being born by entitled and selfish parents, made them to inherit this vice of selfishness. Out of selfishness, Cain became angry with God because his offering wasn't accepted. As a firstborn, he may have thought, I'm entitled. I should be the first one, whose offering should be accepted by God. But his brother, who is a secondborn, Abel, God goes ahead to accept his offering. This might have triggered a sense of entitlement to the mind of Cain. And the Bible records that at one point God asked Cain, why are you so angry? Your countenance on your face can tell it. Sin is after you. What sin was God talking about? God was talking about the sin of selfishness. And God goes ahead to tell Cain, do all that you can. Make a decision that sin will not overtake you. Unfortunately, he decided to murder or to kill his brother Abel. And that's how the second act of selfishness led to a physical death. I don't know how many people have ever wondered why the first death in humanity or in mankind came through murder. And the answer is simple. It was because the root cause was selfishness. This tells us that selfishness is the root cause of so many things, of so many vices in the world, unethical circumstances. Selfishness leads not only to death of relationships, because it led to death of the first relationship, the relationship between God and man, and now it has led to the death, to a physical death through murder, where Cain kills his brother Abel out of selfishness and a sense of entitlement. Unfortunately, the rejection of this truth has kept so many people in self-denial, and this mentality has continued to soothe or to incubate their mindset of selfishness and entitlement. So, it's very unfortunate that hitherto a sense of entitlement and selfishness continues senselessly claiming lives of innocent people. I think most of the murders that happen, they don't happen by a sheer coincidence. Just like Abel was not murdered out of a sheer coincidence, the aspect of it was entitlement and selfishness. And that's how inherent selfishness is. From the Adamic sin, we are selfish beings by birth. The second cause or source of selfishness is the acquired selfishness. Acquired selfishness emanates through two avenues. The first avenue is an avenue we have discussed called identity crisis, and the second avenue is permissive or indulgent parenting. I'll quickly elucidate on identity crisis as a source of selfishness. Where we previously said that identity crisis instigates low self-esteem, which is responsible for two occurrences, the depressive and the stimulative occurrence, where the depressive occurrence leads to hopelessness and helplessness. The stimulative occurrence leads to a sense of grandiose ego, and this grandiose ego resorts or contrives manipulation, especially on something that so many people can relate with, politics, where the hopeless people, the depressive state, or the depressed group of people are lured into voting the stimulative group of people. But remember, these two people are suffering from low self-esteem, but that one is leads to manipulation. That's the stimulative part, and the other one being manipulated. That's the depressive part. And this raw self-esteem that manifests in different two facets leads the manipulator to manipulate the other group This is an imposter stimulated kind of uh, self-esteem. And the imposters, they are also raw in self-esteem, but they hide behind the grandiose ego as a coping mechanism, hence a sense of entitlement. In its full manifestation, their sense of entitlement instigates selfishness as an inseparable fusion with a synergetic effect. Let me explain that. This group, the manipulator group, the stimulative aspect of low self-esteem, who are hiding their low self-esteem behind grandiose ego, they'll go ahead and manipulate the other group, the depressed group, and this occurrence brings entitlement. Their entitlement further brings selfishness. That's, because those two aspects, selfishness and entitlement, are inseparable. And these, when they combine, they have a synergetic effect. This occurrence minimizes or totally disregards the need and the feeling of others. So these two things, they are twins. You cannot separate them. Where there is a sense of entitlement, you shall find an aspect of selfishness. That's the first way, or the first group of how selfishness is an acquired vice. And the second part is the permissive or the indulgent parenting. This is the kind of parenting that negates or neglects the aspect of rating young kids, during their formative years, developmental age. This is where some parents are overly friendly with their kids, where correcting a wrong or a mistake becomes a problem, hence a sense of entitlement to whatever they need, how they need whatever they need, and what they believe about what they need. Unfortunately, this kind of parenting robs the child a sense of social skills. If you parent your kids, that they are entitled to whatever they need, you're just bringing in a sense of, you're just incubating a sense of selfishness, whereby they shall not regard or they shall not run the greatness or the importance of social skills like sharing. And this mindset, when it begins at that tender age, it ruins the whole life, the whole future of that child, because this child will grow up with a mentality or with a mindset of entitlement, where he or she will carry that one even to the future, to his or her future. So we have seen that selfishness is either inherent, you're born with it, and that makes it so difficult to fight it, but it does not mean that you cannot fight it. And also, it's something that is acquired through what we can precisely say poor parenting. That is permissive, in bracket, indulgence parenting. So, in closing, while selfishness is a universal personality disorder that's akin to elitism, selflessness is the only known panacea. So, as we continue to navigate through the world of selfishness, we must understand that the only panacea that can liberate humanity from these vice of selfishness is selflessness. Until next time, please take care. Blessings and shalom.